Okay. Well, I appreciate everybody taking the time today to hop on the call. I have a couple of purposes of today's call, and it's to kind of introduce what this learning community is all about, introduce some of our position leads, the people who you can hopefully lean on with your questions at your various positions, for those of you with questions. I culled through the questions that were submitted earlier when I asked for that survey earlier in March about, or earlier in February about what are some things you'd like to know for the group, and they're primarily focused for this call on camps and off-season prep. So I pulled some of those. That doesn't mean we won't have an opportunity to ask other questions during that, but we'll go from there. If we have time, because I'm conscious of everybody's time and I don't want to keep this more than an hour, wanted to dig into the preseason quiz I sent out from the Collegiate Officiating Consortium, the first 10 questions, and then we'll wrap up. So that's the plan. First of all, the purpose, the goal when I was kind of brainstorming this with some other folks at the national tournament was to kind of lean on the expertise we had among the group of rec sports professionals and kind of try to tailor that towards developing people who are interested in becoming or advancing within NCAA football officiating. So I'm hopeful that that as you've seen things on the website or emails that I've sent out, that's something that you have interest in. I would imagine you wouldn't be on this call if you weren't, but I'm hopeful we can help to connect people as well as provide some additional background and information so we can share and make us all better officials. That's kind of the goal of this group as I see it. Hopefully, grow and change as we have different needs as we go through things, but I'm hopeful that is a thing that we all can find benefit in. I want to do some introduction of some position leads, and for those leads that are on the call, just if you could introduce yourself, where you're from, and maybe a brief where you're at in your officiating career, that'd be super helpful. I'll start with referee, umpire, and center judge, and I'm going to start with Dave Siegel.
Hi, everyone. From Ann Arbor, Michigan, and last season was my 5th year in the Division I Conference, Missouri Valley. Prior to that, had about a decade in Division II in the GLIAC. Real happy to get this together. I owe a lot of my career to the NERSA network. Started out with flag football, many tournaments down in New Orleans, officiating there, so real happy to help out.
Thanks, Dave. Ryan?
Ryan Wingers. I work at Georgia Southern University in Statesboro, Georgia. Fortunate enough to work in the American Athletic Conference. This was my 5th year. This past year there, I worked some lower-level football in Florida before transitioning to the American. So, similar to David, first thing I officiated formally was intramural flag football, intramural sports in general, and then flag football. So, everything, the start of it, to NERSA and this group here. I remember when Nick Brigatti was a clinician at the National Flag Football Tournament when I was there officiating.
I'd say probably most people on this call remember that, because for some of them it was a couple of weeks ago. Thanks, Ryan. We're still hopefully trying to find somebody with some umpire expertise to lean in on, but David's a referee and Ryan's a center judge, and those will be the two of the main people that'll kind of coordinate things for those positions as we move forward. For the line of scrimmage, as you don't know me, Nick Brigatti. Finished my first year in the MAC, worked a couple of years in the Missouri Valley in the league with David, and then several years before that in Division II in the GLIAC. I worked some in D3 as a back judge before I moved to the line of scrimmage. Another one of the people helping us out is Tom Eaton. Is Tom on the call? I didn't think so. Tom and I met when I was in grad school at UCF. Tom just finished his first year in the SEC. He works in the XFL. So he may be a little light with us until that season is over. He also worked in the Alliance for all 8 weeks of that. It happened last year. He was in the Conference USA before that, and then I believe he was in the Gulf South. AJ Haddock?
Yeah, hi. AJ Haddock out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. I work at the University of Michigan. Just finished my 6th season in the GLIAC, so Division II conference that is made up of Ohio and Michigan schools. Similar to Ryan and Dave and Nick, I guess. Started officiating intramural flag football, intramural basketball, and in Iowa. It's also where I started officiating high school football, and then kind of bounced around the country, and have made a home here in Michigan. So looking forward to answering any questions I can, and hopefully learning some stuff along the way too. So glad I'm a part of the group.
Thanks, AJ. So the three of us will be kind of coordinating stuff from the line of scrimmage perspective. So if you have line of scrimmage questions, feel free to send them our way. The deep officials, I'm going to start with Brian because I know Brian's on the call.
Yeah, Brian Stelzer, University of Nebraska currently. I just finished my first year as a field judge in the MIAA Division II here in Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. Before that, I was out on the East Coast for a little bit. I did a stint in North Carolina, and I had a year at the CIAA there as an umpire, so I've been both umpire and deep wing. Still just finished the fourth year. Came back home, though, to Nebraska. That's where I got started, along with wingers and several others. So I've been bouncing around quite a bit. So I've got NAIA and NCAA experience.
Thanks, Brian. Leanne Sermon could not make it. Leanne is a deep wing, finished her first season in the Valley. I believe she was working in the D3 consortium that the Collegiate Officiating Consortium runs in the Chicagoland area. She is currently at DePaul. Billy?
How's everyone doing tonight? Yeah, I was the Ohio Valley Conference. I'm on the supplemental staff there, and full-time in the North Coast, back judge. Like everyone else, I started in flag football at Purdue, and I'm now working Wright State as the program director. So excited to be a part of this.
Thanks, Billy. So Brian, Leanne, and Billy will be on the kind of the point for the deep officials as we build that out. If you have questions about field side and back judge, send them their way. So now that you've kind of met some of the position leads for the group, I wanted to spin into some of the questions that were sent along. We're going to start with questions about camp. And one of the questions that came up a couple of times is, when is it too early to go to certain camps and clinics? I'll speak from my experience. I didn't know when to go until somebody who had seen me work told me I should go and take a shot. I was very lucky. I was seen by somebody who recommended me to my Division III supervisor. So I didn't start going to camps and clinics till I was already in Division III. But I think that it's important to be able to find somebody who can give you honest feedback about how you're doing and where you're at in your game before you go to some camps and clinics. I think it differs widely for a variety of different camps. I know that the Tom Beard camp has a lot of officials that I think are probably closer to the start of their career and trying to get in. I don't know if anybody has any feedback or anything they want to add to this question.
Justin Ford, deep wing from North Carolina. You want to go to camps that you can afford to go to. And that's from not only paying for the camp, but also getting there, and also the room and board and stuff. So the interesting thing about football right now at the collegiate level is there aren't as many camps as there are basketball camps. So you are pretty much going to get your money's worth, but the fees and stuff associated with that ranges from $100 all the way up to $1,500 or even $2,500, depending on where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I think builds off that, and that was a good point, is that I don't think you want to sink a lot of money into something until you feel pretty good about where you're at in your career and you think you have a shot to get hired.
I would echo that. I'm thinking about the D2 clinics and camps that I've been to, whether it was the CIAA in North Carolina. That's a good league in terms of development. That's where I got started. Same, too, for the MIAA. They have really good camps that are relatively affordable. I guess my point would be, don't try to go to a D1 clinic that's $1,500 when you haven't worked college football. Again, you're going to need to have those lower level conferences say, okay, you're ready for the next level, as kind of Nick pointed out. So.
Anybody else have anything to add, or we'll move on to the next question? All right. Piggybacking off of that, what are the best camps and clinics to attend to grow and advance? David, you want to talk a little bit about camps and clinics you've gone to that you felt like have helped you out?
Yeah, and a lot of that, I think, depends on where you are in the country and which camps the supervisor of the conferences you are applying to will attend. Those are your best starting points. So, in the Midwest, as an example, certainly I think one of the best camps is Dick Honig's clinic that he runs in Lansing, Michigan every April. Not only is the content, there's a lot of great classroom content there. There's an on-the-field scrimmage there. You'll get some great feedback. And I know messages go out to a variety of D3, D2, and yes, even D1 supervisors from that camp. There's several one-day camps and clinics also where you're on career, just in the states of Ohio and Illinois, aware of. Those are great. If you're trying to get into D3, D2, those are the camps probably those supervisors attend. Several indicated they're going to be at that clinic, and it is probably more of a Division I clinic, but it also could someone who's trying to get into Division II in that Division II, Division III on the East Coast. Also a good camp and clinic just from the number of clinicians and supervisors that attend those. So, I've been to the OAFO clinic in Ohio. That's a good one. Honig's, Tom Beard, and then a few other random offshoot one-day clinics.
Does anybody from the Southeast want to talk about some camps or clinics in that region that might be good for advancement?
This is Ryan Wingers. I will mention a couple camps specifically. The Oxford camp, I hear good things about. It's a passing camp, but there's education and there's a lot of clinicians there. I personally have never been. It's more for wings and deep wings since it's all passing. There's a newer camp that's down in, where is it? It's in like the Lakeland area around Orlando. I don't forget what it's called right off the top, but it's like the Florida Gulf Officials Camp. Nick, we gave a registration to that, not this year, but last year, I believe, at the Nurse and National Flag. That is a camp specifically for people looking to get into college football. It is specifically for that, and over the last year or so, they've actually gotten some D1 supervisors to attend, and they have Division I officials across the board as clinicians. So that's actually a really good one for starting down in the Southeast.
I know David mentioned Tom Beard, which is in the Baltimore area. Does anybody else in the Mid-Atlantic or Northeast have any camps or clinics up that way that they're aware of?
Yeah, there's one that's hosted by the CIP. It's the name, I can't remember the name, but it's right outside of Philadelphia.
Liberty Bell? Is it
the Liberty Bell. Yeah, the Liberty Bell. It's actually it's just a clinic. There's no on the field work with that. It's just a one-day clinic on Saturday. That's the one for new people that are really wanting to start out and just those clinics are usually all of the clinics and camps are networking opportunities, but the clinics are usually just like one day, and they usually don't cost any more than $200 and maybe $250, and they usually start on Saturday mornings and they're done on Saturday afternoons, and it just really gives an opportunity to network. The Liberty Bell one in Philadelphia, There's also the Blue Ridge that's in Roanoke, Virginia. And a lot of the clinics have some type of association with a particular conference or consortium. So like the Liberty Bell is more kind of like the CIP. The one that Ryan was talking about is more like Gulf South. The Blue Ridge is more of a SoCon, Southern Conference, a little bit of ACC, and then the South Atlantic Conference mixed into it. So the further south you go, southeast and southwest, there's a little bit more football clinics and camps and stuff. And too bad there's not one particular website to kind of reference, kind of similar to basketball, where there's the Philly Ref, and it kind of lists all of the camps and clinics. But like I mentioned before, there's not as many as there are in basketball, so there's really not a bad football camp or clinic to go to right now. It just really depends on where you are in your career and if you can afford to go or not.
Are there any? I know I'm in the mountains here, and I know of a high school clinic in the region, but I've heard of Tate Consul. I'm not sure exactly where that is.
That's in Salt Lake City?
I think so. Parker, are you on the call?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. I've actually been to Tate Consul. Great camp if you're out west. It's really good beginner instruction. You don't have to feel like you're out of place if you haven't necessarily done college before. I thought it was a great learning opportunity for me. I did it before I started college, and so that was what opened a lot of doors for me in my growth. And then I'll also talk about briefly the El Paso football officials camp. Also a great clinic out west. I went last year. It's where I got picked up. Really good snaps out there. They play live football sometimes for upwards of 3 or 4 hours, and you're getting anywhere from a quarter to a full half of football, which at camp can be a struggle sometimes. So to get that much quality snaps is really nice. Film, if available there as well. And that one's an easy, quick in and out, about 36 to 40 hours. So it seems small, but very high quality. The staff, they've got upwards of 12 to 14 different supervisors and observers, and then NFL and FBS officials from all over. So you're getting really good, strong looks down at the El Paso camp.
Thanks, Parker. Anybody else have any camps they recommend?
Roger Perez, University of Delaware. Just touching back on the Liberty Bell, there is no on-field day of, but if you sign up early enough for that camp, you actually have access to a lot of scrimmages through the CIP. I know the last 2 years I've worked, I think, 6 Delaware practices because I can just take my lunch break and go work practice. So you sign up if you're in the CIP's footprint. They'll usually contact the schools. They send out a CIP crew there, and then they're working with the newer officials, giving those officials the grass time at those practices. So that's one where you're not being observed by supervisors, but it's a lot of good instruction from Division I officials at those practices if you get in early enough and can get to one of those locations.
Thanks, Ryan.
Hey, this is Billy. I've also heard the Stars and Stripes Academy. Heard good things about it. Heard they do a lot of really different things, and it's more of a couple-month process, it seems like. We're getting a crew, do a lot of evaluation and rule study before going to the camp. Haven't been. Something I'm definitely interested in and looking into. Also, Rule 11 officials, the online podcast, they're doing some single day, just webinar type stuff throughout the off season. At least they did last year. I assume they're going to try doing that again this year. So good stuff all around.
I also recommend going to their website, rule11officials.com, because they have a list of some camps and clinics. It's not comprehensive, as we were talking about before, but there is some benefit, I think, still to checking it out.
I'm just going to jump in quick on the end of Billy there. Stars and Stripes is a really good camp, but also very high level, very involved. A lot of times you have to have done off-field a year before you can get on-field there, so note that. And pretty expensive, though in Salt Lake City it's easily accessible. And you typically will be doing conference calls 2 or 3 months before you actually get to camp, so you're comfortable with your crew before arriving.
Thanks, Parker. All right, moving on to the next question. What is the most important thing to prepare or focus on leading up to a camp or clinic? Rules, mechanics, philosophies, etc. I'll speak from my experience. I think the mechanics become the most important thing because depending upon what camp you go, you may be working semi-pro. And if you're working semi-pro, you're working NFL rules anyway. I can speak from the Tom Beard experience. They don't necessarily expect you to know all of the NFL rules, but they certainly will observe you on the mechanics and philosophies. I think that's what I would say to focus on the most as it leads into a preseason camp. Other thoughts there?
Ryan Wingers, I'm making somewhat of the assumption that a handful of people on this call are maybe younger, under 30 or early 30s, and you may be the youngest person at the clinic. So rules, mechanics, philosophies, all that, obviously incredibly important. But the professionalism with which you present yourself, I think, is as important as anything else. Because people are going to have, they're going to pass judgment just based on your age and how you look walking into the room. So are you early? Are you late? Are you dressed the part? Overdressed? Underdressed? How clean does your uniform look if you have on field? Those types of things, I think, are incredibly important. And in general, off-the-field stuff is just as important as on the field.
I agree with that. Thanks, Ryan. We'll move on to another question. What should your approach in the classroom section of these camps be? What are some do's and don'ts? AJ, you want to speak to that?
Sure, I can touch on this, and then if others want to jump in. But thinking about do's and don'ts, I think go in, have an idea of obviously what position you're going to attend and what track sessions or breakout sessions you might attend. Go in and ask questions, but certainly don't have the yeah buts. When we talk about mechanics, Nick was just talking about mechanics. While we all want to be consistent across the country, each conference does things slightly different. So you might get an answer that isn't how you do it back in your state or your area. Go in, take that information, but don't have a bunch of yeah buts. Go in with Beard to take some notes, right? You're going to get a lot of information, so be there ready to jot stuff down and just have an overall sense of what you want to get out of that session.
I would be mindful and cautious about asking questions to just show how much you know about a topic. I don't think that the presenters and or the supervisors like that stuff too much. If you're not sure if it's a good if the question you have is a good question to ask, and you have somebody in that session with you that you want to maybe ask them first before you put it in front of the large group, I don't think that's a bad strategy either. All right, another question. Go ahead, somebody.
Sorry, Nick. Ryan, I just echo both of what AJ and Nick said. If you're asking a question to prove that you already know it, I mean, you just got to search your own intent when you're there. If you genuinely want to learn and know, if something doesn't make sense after you ask the question the first time, follow up on one-on-one. Don't, yeah, but, or, oh, by the way, oh, that. While you may be genuine when you ask that, to Nick's point, don't be afraid to just have a one-on-one conversation after the fact with someone you know, or introduce yourself to the person presenting and ask it in that situation.
I agree with that too. what should you bring with you, and what do you wish you knew going into your first camp or clinic? Brian, what do you think about that?
That's a fabulous question. I guess we kind of touched on it a little bit. I went in thinking I was going to need to know a lot of the rules, so I studied the rule book a lot, and you realize when you get there, you really don't have any opportunity to show your rules knowledge, really. You're not taking tests in most of these cases, unless you're in one of the higher level clinics, in which case that's part of it. So at least at the entry level, it's about knowing your mechanics. It's about knowing how to network and get to know people. If you are as introverted as me, it's a lot harder to get around the room and get to know people, but that is absolutely something they're critiquing you on. My current supervisor in my end of the year call said that he hires more people off the field than he does on the field. So when you're going to these clinics and he's looking for character, because that's his number one thing, he wants passion, he wants character, know that that's what some of these assigners are looking for. They don't want headaches. They want people that are passionate about it. And so let that show through. Don't be worried about anything other than being yourself. So that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would recommend too is not to be a pest with supervisors. You know, if you have an opportunity to talk to somebody, you get a brief conversation, that's great. I don't think, unless it's clear to you that they want to talk to you for an extended period of time, getting in anything longer than getting in, quick introduction, and then moving on, because they're there to see a lot of people too. I wouldn't recommend just being the gnat that constantly flies around them, and that I don't think that endears you to too many people either. Anybody have anything else on this topic?
If you do go to those camps and clinics during the classroom session, bring something to write with, or just bring something to write with. You can't bring your tablets and stuff, but there's people that are always watching and observing, and if you're taking, it's always good to look like you're taking notes. That always helps out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'd say also talk to somebody that's been to that camp before, so you can get a sense of what the agenda is going to be like, what you're going to be doing, who's going to be there, what certain supervisors like, et cetera, just so you have a sense going in, not that you're going in blind and you forget to bring something that's important.
Kind of building on what Parker said, knowing the agenda, and you don't be the last one to walk in the room, especially late.
Always be early. We fortunately have already touched on the cost of camps and clinics. So here's a question for everybody. How does someone who's new to 7 or 8 person officiating decide which position to apply for? Is it better to focus on a specific position or equally prepare for all positions?
I'll take this one at least start, and others can give their opinions on it. But I think if you're in high school football now, and you're trying to get into college football, at least my advice is try to learn as much as you can about a variety of positions. A couple of reasons why. One, you need to know what you like, what you prefer. If you're working high school football, not many states have 7 officials on the field, so you may not have as much experience working deep, and you may not really know if you enjoy those positions or not. And also, the second reason is the biggest key in advancing is there need to be spots, and you just never know when those spots will come up. So if you can prove that you have a little bit of variety in your toolkit, as far as I can work deep or work line of scrimmage, and you're a good official, especially trying to break into a D3, D2 conference, that's just going to only help you. Once you're in a D3, D2 conference, then you'll probably get more specialized into a certain position, and then that's where you can focus more on just attending those sessions in further camps or clinics. But I would say try to learn as much as you can and find out what you like.
I agree with David. I think one of the things that's important is, and whoever asked this question is probably thinking a little bit along in terms of how do I know what to apply for when I'm going to a camp or a clinic for the first time? If that's the case, I would probably try to work the position that is close to the one that I'm working in high school now. If you assume most states are working 5 officials, if I was a back judge, that's probably where I would apply. If I was working on the line of scrimmage, that's probably where I would apply, unless you really want to push yourself into a different position if you move up the ladder.
I would. Go ahead.
Awkward silence. All right. I would say mimic everything that everyone said, except for one thing. If you genuinely are trying to figure out something new and different, still nobody knows what the center judge position is or does half the time. And so if you want to try something different and new that people are still figuring out, people seem to be a little hesitant to go to or towards, it's hard to fail there initially because not a lot of people know what's going on. So if that's when we're trying to broaden your horizons a little bit, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a very active position for those who are wondering. So I'll advocate for it.
Well, this is Billy. Something I'd like to add is body type has a lot to do with what assigners are looking for, especially if you want to get into the D1 level. If you look at line of scrimmage officials, most of them are over 6 foot. I am not, so that's where I went deep and went that route, even though I was a line of scrimmage official in high school. Doing both at the same time, D3 and high school, having the 2 different positions personally helped me keep the rule book separate from a Friday night to a Saturday. So kind of opposite of what Nick thought. So, I mean, it's all in what you can manage and what you think is best for you.
All right. So I know some people have brought this up, but what camps and clinics are members of this group attending? So that might help people if they're either thinking about going to a camp or they are already scheduled to go to a camp and they at least might know somebody there. Where are people going? I'll start. I'll be at Tom Beard here next month, as well as Honus Clinic that Dave talked about. I'll also intend to go to the OAFO Clinic. There's no on-field component with that. That is Mother's Day Saturday, I believe. It should be in Columbus. And then I'm working at the Front Range Camp at the end of May into early June. So I will be at those 4 clinics and camps as the season goes on. So where else will other people be?
This is Brian
Ford
Stelzer.
here.
Okay. Go ahead,
Brian.
Ford.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian.
Age before beauty.
So this is Stelzer. I'm going to the Honus Clinic as well, so I'll be in Michigan with Nick. If anyone is interested in the MIAA clinics, I will be at the Pittsburgh one in Pittsburgh, Kansas, that is, not Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I will be at that one. I also know several people that will be at the one in Topeka.
Mr. Ford?
I'm also going to the Tom Beard Clinic in a couple of weeks. And then I'm going out to El Paso. I guess that's Memorial Day weekend.
Parker?
Yeah, I'll be joining Justin out at El Paso this year, and we get a couple clinics for the conference as well.
Billy, where are you going to be?
I'm going to be out at Tom Beard and then also the Ohio Valley Spring Clinic, and then possibly OAFO.
Roger?
I will be at Tom Beard this month and then potentially Liberty Bell.
Thanks. AJ?
I'll be at the Tom clinic here in Michigan, and then down in Ohio for the OAFO clinic.
Mr. Stewart?
Most likely just the Liberty Bell right now.
Okay. Ryan?
Nick, I'm actually not going anywhere this year, just working scrimmages with my wife expecting.
I think we can all understand that. Wallace?
I will be at Blue Ridge this weekend, Tom Beard next month, and then Dave's trying to talk me into going to Liberty Bell.
Mr. Siegel?
Tom Beard and Honigs.
If I didn't call your name, it's because I only see a phone number and don't know who you are. So if you're on the call and are going to a camp, let us know.
Yeah, this is Clee Sellers. I'm going to the MIAA camp and the Jayhawk camp.
Zach Gilbert, I'll be at the Blue Ridge.
Well, hopefully that helps connect a couple of people, and I'm sure when this when the call gets released to everybody that couldn't make it tonight, we'll find some other folks that'll be with us too. But I'm going to move on here to preseason and off-season preparation.
Hey, Nick, do you mind real quick if I do something related to camps and clinics?
Okay, go ahead.
Just I was listening and I didn't know if it would come up naturally, but camp's obviously really important, clinic's really important, but I think as important as that is getting scrimmages, the opportunity to be seen and work those. If you have a school anywhere near you, D3, D2, NAIA, Division I, finding a contact for that, it's emailing somebody at the school, emailing somebody that you know within the conference, but finding a way to get on that list and just work those scrimmages, because you never know who's going to be at those. I got picked up into my first college conference because I happened to work a scrimmage with a guy who was in charge of that conference. It wasn't a camp connection, wasn't anything else. It just happened to be that way. So I think obviously camps are there for a reason and they're a great resource, but more snaps, more feedback, more anything are going to happen from working practices and scrimmages consistently throughout the spring than I think anywhere else, or even in the fall. So I just would leave that, as we can't forget about those.
Yep. I would also see if you can't find people in your area who might know about who coordinates practices. If you're near a school that does spring practice or spring scrimmages, they may be able to connect you to. Okay, moving on to off-season prep. What does your weekly off-season routine look like? I'll go last because I'm a terrible example of this based on my current work situation. Anybody else want to talk about what they do on a week-to-week basis right now, what they're up to at this point in the off-season?
Yeah, Zach Gilbert, sorry. I'm in southeastern North Carolina. At this point, our local rules meeting has started. We have probably 3 ACC guys, probably 15 total, mix of D1 and D2 guys. We're already about to start our rule clinics. I'm in the middle of going through all my conference quizzes from last year and re-answering those, and then any other conference quizzes I may have from Sunbelt or SEC or SoCon. Yes, I have the answers, so it's nice to be able to go back and check to make sure I'm not wrong, but trying to get back into football mode. I try to take time off in December when I'm done with football by and large, and so just after the Super Bowl. One, to give my wife and son a break because they're happy to have me back home. So just trying to get my mind back into rule mode. I haven't picked up the rule book yet. I'm beyond trying to answer quiz questions if I get stuck, but mostly just trying to get the mind back in there, start thinking more terminology. And then in the mechanics book, because we've got scrimmages coming up on, first one's March 12th, and then scrimmages at least once a week from the 12th of March until the 11th of April.
Thanks, Zach. Who else wants to talk about their off-season routine?
I'll talk about it, I guess. So for me, I'm still not picking up the rule book as much. I'm about getting snaps. So we have our scrimmages coming up, so I want to get as many as I can. I'm currently on the schedule for 3 of my own league. I also am weird. I work the indoor football league, so I'm getting snaps in a different setting just to kind of stretch my officiating knowledge and kind of put yourself in those awkward situations. So you get a little bit different talent level when you're doing those kind of things. So for me, it's about putting myself in the weird and getting a chance to see those. Really working on mechanics, getting in shape. I mean, if you're not already working out, if you try to do it in June, July, you're not going to be ready for it. So I'm not very good at the all season long kind of workout. So this is when I really have to refocus on my health and getting in shape and everything else like that. So and then in the next few weeks, I'll start getting back into the rule book.
So I'm a lot like Zach in that I put football away from whenever my last assignment is until about after the Super Bowl because I got basketball and other things going on, and it's helpful to compartmentalize those things. But once we hit the Super Bowl, I'll try to do. Our conference provides a Axon training module, which is like, look at these plays in this category, like offensive holding plays. Is this holding or not? And they'll run 15 or so plays. So I try to do those various categories every day. I'm starting to go back through all of our regular season games and watch a quarter a day, just what I'm doing, and trying to evaluate myself again. Did I like the way I moved on that play? Did I not like the way I moved on that play? What could I have done differently? Did I see this action? If I did, why didn't I call it, et cetera, et cetera. Stuff that I had been doing during the regular season, but again, gives me an opportunity to see some number of plays until some of the practices around here start up again. And then I'm spending time in the last couple of weeks doing 10 questions of the COC Quiz, or I'll read a rule and its case plays, or I'll do read the Reading Guide. I try to give myself between an hour and a half to 2 hours a day during the week of football stuff to do. Again, probably not reasonable for most of you with jobs and stuff, but that's where I'm at right now because that's the stuff that works for me as I look at my off-season prep.
Something that I'm doing is, going over different quiz questions with our crew, just to keep the crew camaraderie going, and make sure that everyone's kind of staying involved. Yeah, I don't have the time for 1 to 2 hours a day right now. Must be nice, Nick. But yeah, just, a couple questions a day, reading some of the rule book or case plays throughout the week. Heavy into the physical fitness and, rehabbing an injury right now. So trying to get through that. And this way we're ready for the season come July.
Ryan?
Nothing different than really what anyone else said. In theory, I would like to say that at least once a week I carve out an hour to an hour and a half to do any variation of quiz questions and or video review, watching training tapes from last year. Doesn't always end up that way, but I would say typically for me, quiz questions, is it the old, Nick sharing the COC test? Is it last year's CFO test? Is it tests and different resources? I have a hard time just reading a rule book. Like the play examples definitely help, or cherry picking areas and reading case plays or doing that to try and actually retain the information. Because if I just read it straight out of the rule book, it's probably not going to stick.
I could give you some tips as to how to free up a bunch of time in your schedule, but you probably wouldn't like it.
Yeah, we can offline that one there, Nick.
I also try to find time every day to go to the gym, and like Brian was talking about, take care of myself too, because I think that's equally important. Moving on to the next question. What is the best way to use video from prior seasons to prepare for the upcoming season? Dave, how do you use video to do that preparation?
It's a little, the answer is maybe not so applicable because I know coming up into camps and clinics season, of which I'll be presenting at a few of them, so there's a lot of kind of study and preparation just to get ready for those presentations. I can tell you, I guess, from that angle, it is a little bit of what you said, Nick, about looking at your position and, did you see action that you should have? Why or why not? We're in the right position. And that is one thing that is said at many camps and clinics is that when we miss calls as officials, usually it's because there's a mechanical breakdown, we weren't in the right position, or we made a call too quickly. When you have game film, look at yourself, were you in the right position, and what were your mechanics is the right thing. That's a nice thing to do at this point of the year. When you're not just getting ready for next week, you can kind of give yourself a good self-evaluation about how you watched a play and covered a play correctly.
AJ, how do you use video?
Yeah, I can jump in here. Not all of us are getting our film broken down in the off season into categories of holding and DPI and OPI. So some of us have to go out and put those into categories ourselves. And one of the ways I do that is during the season, as I break my video down, we use Huddle, and so I'll have ongoing playlists of different categories from my game and from other games in our league, and then I'll reference that in the off season. So it might be line of scrimmage, deep wing mechanics, and just a bucket of plays from the previous season. So I'll be able to go back and reference some of that. And it's also a good time during the off season to go back through your games and add to those buckets, because during the season it's tough to watch your game and a bunch of other games in your league. So and then kind of just off-season prep, I'll grab a category, ineligibles downfield, and I'll be able to go back and you can read the rule and a couple of quiz questions, but then go back into Huddle and you have that playlist there for you, and look through plays from the previous seasons.
Parker, what about you?
Is that me?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I'm going to go back through all my games, probably eventually here before camp. Just about 9 or 10 games of college football. Watch where I was, watch my movement. Am I watching the right stuff? Certainly look at the flags that I threw, make sure I still like them. But just being able to get those virtual reps, they say about 3 virtual reps is good for about 1 on-field rep. And so as much as I can get that stuff in before camp, so when I'm going to camp, I know I'm prepared. I look the way I need to look on the field. I'm where I need to be, and my mechanics are sharp, because that's what I really focus on when I'm going into preseason work, and then certainly, obviously, complement that with some rules study.
Thanks for that. I think we've answered the last question pretty well too. Staying engaged, and so I appreciate everybody's feedback on some of these topics. So we'll move on to some other items. The web forum, I haven't seen a lot of posts here, but it's something I wanted to make everybody aware of. I'm hopeful that as you have questions that come up, if you don't know where to direct them necessarily, feel free to go over to the website, click on the forum tab, and post. If it's in a category that's already there, great. If it's not, you should be able to start a new topic by clicking the new topic button at the top. So hopefully we can get a little bit more engagement on the forums for questions people might have, because I don't anticipate that we'll have these conference calls more frequently than once a month. And I know there are probably lots of questions out there to be asked. Some other things about the website. I'm going through, as new CFO documents are coming out, and saving them to the shared Google Drive that everybody should have access to. I'll probably go back in the coming weeks and bring in stuff that has already been posted to the CFO site from previous years and bring it over to the Google Drive just so that's all in one place for people who maybe don't belong to CFO or want to have all that stuff in one place. So be on the lookout for that. All right. I'm not necessarily sure that we have a great forum for doing the quiz here, so here's what I propose we'll do with the COC quiz. I will go into the Google Drive here probably tomorrow and create a document that has a bunch of the answers that the conclusions I have come to, as has been established from the people who've emailed me when there are errors in the quizzes, and I do appreciate that. I don't pretend to be all-knowing. If there are things that you see in the answers that I've got that are different than what you've got, feel free to send them my way, or we can hopefully create some opportunities to share answers. I'd love to do something like that also with the CFO test when it comes out. I will continue to share other tests and quizzes that are not the ones that I've written every week. I hope everybody's finding use of those things as well, but I'm going to go ahead and skip toward the end here. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we've talked about today or ideas for the group?
No, Nick, I just want to say thank you for the effort that you put in so far, sending the weekly updates and creating this online stuff. You know, when you look that there's over 20 people at some point have been on this call listening. So for a start, I think that's pretty awesome. And not really sure how it's going to evolve. I think we'll figure that out as we go. But thank you for taking the time that you have right now and using it productively for the benefit of others, Nick.
I try to use it for good and not for evil. One of the things I'm hopeful we'll be able to do in the coming weeks is maybe post a video play somewhere that people could look at and comment. That's something that I hopefully to start doing here probably late March, as well as looking for topics for future conference calls. If you're somebody on this call that's maybe not a position lead, but you want to present on a topic, whether that's a rules or a mechanics topic or both, let me know so I can get you on the schedule. I think this is a good opportunity and a safe space to share some of that. Maybe you want to run it by our group before you take it to your local study groups. I'd be more than willing to work with you on some of those things. But I hope that you have found today to be beneficial. I hope you've appreciated and have taken have enjoyed the quizzes and things that I've sent out along with you over in the emails and things. So I hope that there's been benefit to everybody in some way. So thank you all for your time today. Be on the lookout for more communication from me. But have a great rest of your week, and I guess I'll see some of you here in a couple weeks at Tom Beard.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep. Have a good night, everybody.
Appreciate it.